All right, let me introduce our SAP and speaker for the day. Many of y'all probably already know Jason Forrest, or also his wife, Mary Forrest. Jason has been an actual EO member for 10 years, so since the chapter started, and you probably met Mary at lots of the events that they've attended. But their company, Forrest Performance Group, is going to talk to you about their specialty. Let me tell you a little bit about their company. FPG is dedicated to restoring the pride, purpose, and respect to professional selling. We recruit, train, and send out dedicated sales professionals to make you sales without sacrificing overhead. We bring your vision to the masses. So with that, I'll let Jason and Mary take over from here.
I'm going to try to, I was thinking about buttoning my jacket, but I think I've got a couple of COVID pounds on it right now that I don't know if it's going to
this one or that one?
I did not notice.
Correctly. So let me see. No, it's not going to work.
Do you just want me to do this?
What? Okay. Okay, so, so the initial assessment that we gave you guys was just a good kind of mind opener to see, how you scored. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go through the 5 hiring mistakes. We obviously are an organization that will do all of that for you. So everything that you have on the hiring assessment checklist of what you need to do to bring on the best sales warrior, the ultimate sales warrior for you, we can do all of that for you. But it's a good gauge of where you are right now. So to make this very quick, what you could do is if you didn't check any of the boxes, then you could just give us our credit card right now and we'll just take care of it for you. So that would be like the simplest approach. Okay, so let's go. We're going to go really fast. Mary and I are going to go back and forth. What time is it? 11:58. Perfect. All right, so turn to page 3. Perfect. So these 5 hiring mistakes and onboarding mistakes that we see when people are bringing on sales professionals, which really is everything, right? So if you think about, each one of you in this room are artists in your organization. And I would also say that I would consider you to be the biggest advocates for your organization. So if you think of an advocate as someone who walks around downtown protesting what they believe. But each of you in this room started your organization because you believed that you had a product or service that the world needed to hear about and the world needed to consume. And you believed that what you were offering was a better deal than what your competitors are offering. Is that all a true statement? Yes? The reason why you're not scaling right now at the speed that you want to scale is because you don't have enough of you around. So every one of you, I know, could do a great job of advocating and selling your product and service to the customers that you're talking to. Every one of you would have the highest conversion rate if you were to talk to customers that you're talking to. The problem is if you don't hire and train sales professionals or sales warriors to be like you, then you're going to have a roadblock when it comes to scaling. So these are the 5 things that we see. So first thing is biases and leashes. So think of a leash as any sort of mental resistance or negative charge or limiting belief that holds us back from executing something. So a simple concept that I like to put it in your world is that we have this formula called performance equals knowledge minus leashes. So performance is what we do, knowledge is what we've been taught to do, and a leash is anything that holds us back from execution. So everyone in this room has been trained on how to properly do an EO forum. So everyone's been trained on how to do that. The question is, if we were to go evaluate your EO forum experience right now, how close is it aligned to how we're taught to do it? So the knowledge is what you're taught to do. Performance is what you actually do. What keeps you from doing that is some sort of bias, some sort of leash, some sort of story, self-image, reluctance, rule, fear that prevents you from execution. And so what we like to do is when we're hiring people, we need to figure out what are those fears, what are those leashes, what are those biases that keep them from executing what we need them to do, to be able to sell for your organization. At the same time, though, one of the hiring mistakes is that each of us in this room have leashes that will cause us, or biases to cause us to not hire the correct people. So 2 right out of the gate is number 1 is you guys choose experience over gumps. So I always call it avoid the experience trap. So I was just talking to someone just a second ago before I came here, and says, I need you to find 2 salespeople for me in the consulting business, and our ideal candidate is someone who has 15 to 20 years of experience doing this. And I said, great. So let me ask you, if I was to find someone with 15 to 20 years of experience, but was not goal-oriented, had a ton of leashes, had a ton of stories and excuses and reasons why they can't succeed, was not motivated to prospect, and couldn't follow a process, are you okay with that person? And of course she said no. And so the mistake that we make so often in organizations is we have this bias that says they have to have experience in our industry doing what we're doing, and we choose that over someone that's goal-oriented, unleashed, motivated, and procedural-based. So that's a bias that we have to let go of. You have way more success hiring someone that has the right mindset that's goal-oriented, unleashed, motivated, procedural-based, that we can then teach the product knowledge and the other things they need to have to be able to be successful that Mary will go into. The second leash that we see a lot is that that a lot of times we as leaders don't like salespeople. So we don't revere and respect salespeople. So this is a little bit of a raise of hand right now. So let's say you go into a car lot and a sales warrior approaches you. Raise your hand if your first instinct inside of your head, your self-talk is, wow, I am so excited that I finally get a great sales professional that's going to make my buying decision that much easier and is going to help simplify my life so that I can get into the car that I want to choose sooner than doing it on my own. So raise your hand if that's the person. We have one. Look around the room. So one person in this room has an immediate bias that respects and reveres what sales professional is all about. The rest of us in the room, we don't like that, which means you're going to have some filters that if that sales warrior comes across your plate, you're actually not going to hire them. So the question I would ask you, which I think is really interesting, is and this is a good way to hold yourself accountable, is if you have a salesperson that you would say is too aggressive or too assertive or too salesy, I don't think they're going to work with my culture. I don't think we should hire them. The next question you should ask yourself is, if they go work for my biggest competitor selling against my current sales force, who's going to win? So we have these biases that keep us from scaling, and one of them is the fact that we personally don't respect, some of us don't respect and revere what does it take to be a real sales warrior. Next one.
I have the mic. Thank you. And along those lines, I think one of the biggest faults and culture questions that we've been taught to do is do I want to have lunch with them? Because most great salespeople, it is not a relaxing lunch. You're probably not going to want to have lunch with them. And so that could be great for other parts of your culture and other leaders that you're bringing on. But a salesperson, that question alone that we've been taught to ask starts to give us a bias on what's going to be good in our culture. So the second is onboarding. So there are 4 things that you need to make sure that there's a structured teaching around when you're bringing on a new salesperson. So the first one is your product or your service. The next is your brand, your finance, and then your sales process and language. And so what I like to think about here is if we talk about operations, if we talk about finance, if we talk about any other department within the company, you're going to have a very systematic approach. I need you to learn this, and then this, and it goes in order, and we know exactly if they're doing it right or wrong. There's a checklist, and that's going on whether somebody's new or not new. In your operations department, there is a correct order of ways to do things, and there are others. So it's yes or no. However, a lot of times when we start onboarding salespeople, we don't give them a systematic process. We're not teaching them the language. So instead, we say things like, go out and build relationships. Give great service. Make sure you build trust. But at the same time, we wouldn't tell somebody in our operations department, go build a great product. We say you start with step 1, and then you do step 2, and then you do step 3. And so we want to make sure that we're giving that same sort of system and process to the onboarding process for a salesperson so they know exactly what to do. Also learning the language of persuasion and the language of connecting with other people for the purpose of a transaction, not for the purpose of a relationship. Not that relationships are bad. We should absolutely have relationships with our clients, with our customers, with our prospects, but that should be secondary to the understanding what they need and being able to solve that problem for them. The onboarding process should be 90 days. This is when it comes to sales. Now, the reason that it should be 90 days is because there is an 80% correlation produces on day 90 to what they will do at the end of their 12th month. So if you are not happy with their performance at 90 days, you probably will not be happy at their performance at 12 months. So we want to make sure that you're good there. Now, here's the head trash that we start to tell ourselves is it gets to be day 90 and we go, oh, well, you know what? I probably didn't spend enough time with them. I didn't train them enough. I didn't do enough. I could have spent more time with them. I could have done more with them. And so now we start to pull back and go, oh, I'll give them a few more months. I'll give them a few more. And that's when all of a sudden we look and we had somebody that's been with us 18, 24 months that still isn't making numbers that make sense for our company, but we're taking on that blame. And so having a very strong onboarding process for 90 days gives us that freedom, which is what I know you're all seeking, that freedom to say, okay, I'm all in, and here are the steps, and I'm all in for 90 days, and at 90 days, I in pure consciousness from my heart can say, this person should be in my organization, they're providing an ROI, or you say, I, in complete good faith and with nothing on my heart, can say, this person is not gonna be a good fit. They're not gonna be able to make it for us. And so all of that onboarding, 90 days systematic process to make sure that they can be successful so that on day 90, it's not about them, it's about can you, in clear conscience, say yes or no. It also allows you to have to go through those 90 days, keeping your mind straight on saying, you know what, I am all in with them. I don't know if you've ever had somebody start with you and they join, and into the first week or the first day or maybe the first hour, you're like, oh, I don't know if they're gonna make it. This person might be there. And they might not make it for us. So how good of a coach are you? How good of a trainer and a leader are you for somebody that you don't know if they're gonna make it? You're not giving them everything that you can. You're not giving them all the opportunity that they should be able to have. So what I love about the 90 days as well is that I go, okay, I'm full in. I'm gonna coach you to the best of my ability. I'm gonna do everything. I'm gonna pour everything I have into you. And I'm not gonna let my mind one time think you're not gonna make it. But on day 90, I'm gonna have that thought. So I've also scheduled out when I'm gonna make the determination so it's not a procrastination that goes on forever and ever. So that's part of the onboarding and the coaching. So coaching, having virtual ride-alongs. Right now, we can't necessarily always be right with somebody. Our salespeople might be selling virtually. So how can you, one, allow them to ride along with you and see you? Because probably most of you in here are the best salesperson in your organization. So letting them watch, so that the best way to learn something is to just mimic and mirror somebody else who's doing it great. So they're not trying to come up with it on their own. They're following you, the best person at it. The second is for you to then virtually follow them and shadow them, watching what they're doing, how they are executing, so that you can have that coaching. Now, Jason talked about the leashes. So in some of the onboarding, we're going to teach product. We're going to teach how our services work and our brand. But he talked about leashes as well. So leashes are anything that stop us from doing the things that we know to do. So if I know that I should make follow-up calls. And if every sales team we've been in front of, there is not one sales team out there that disagrees that making follow-up calls is the correct thing. But there's a lot of them that aren't doing it. And it's because they have something in their head that says, this is, I'm annoying somebody. People don't like to be called on the phone. Or people only like to be followed up with 3 times. Because 4 times, everybody knows that's when you get annoying. So you don't do it 4 times. So your coaching on your one-on-one sessions that are 30 minutes a week is not on your product, it's not on your brand, it's not on financing, it's on figuring out what is stopping them from doing the things they already know to do. It's not teaching them what to do, they know that. They've done the 90 days of onboarding with you, but why are they not doing it? It also stops you from coming back and saying, you know, Mary, right now I don't know what's going on. My team, they're lacking confidence. I've got this guy, he used to be really great, he was selling a ton, and now he just lacks confidence. And so when that happens, there's a specific situation in which they're lacking confidence. It's either, I don't feel confident because I look around and if I'm selling to somebody and they're older and they have more experience than me, now I don't feel worthy to sell to them. Or I feel really great in person, but all of a sudden with this COVID stuff, I have to sell online, and I'm not comfortable with that. So we want to use assessments to make sure we know what specifically do they not feel confident in, so you can use that 30 minutes of time to coach that away from them. So you're using your time very specifically. And when you know exactly what to target, you don't have to have 2-hour, 3-hour long sales meetings and coaching sessions because you don't have to cover 100 million things. You only have to cover the one that's upsetting and holding that salesperson back right then. And the last thing there too is be all in. The biggest thing in here is our mindset as well on making sure that we are all in, giving the salesperson everything until 90 days when we know they are not ready to go on with us or they're going to be great.
Okay, so think of onboarding as synonymous to training and where you have coaching, right? So think of training as I'm teaching a person kind of what to do and why to do it and how to do it. Think of the coaching pieces now that they've learned that. Now I must hold them accountable and remove any of the stories, self-image, reluctances, or rules that are keeping them from executing. So those are where those two things go really well together. So you got to train and onboard them, and then you have to coach and hold them accountable. So both of those are extremely important. Like in our organization, we live, and I'll talk about the next thing, the final thing, which is these systems. And it's interesting because on the system side, systems and compensation, because we have 4 things here, but it's really 5. So when it comes to the systems, think of right now. Each of you raise your hand if you were a believer of traction or scaling up or some sort of model like that. Okay. So what's interesting is every time we talk to an organization, they are 100% bought into some sort of organizational operating system as it relates to running their culture and running their organization, running their research and development department, running their finance department. There's some sort of system that they run it. But for some reason, they believe that sales is this art form that doesn't need or doesn't deserve a system. So again, I was just talking to a customer just a second ago, and they said the CEO is also the head of sales and believes that doesn't like processes, doesn't like systems, and believes that sales is really, she calls them the cowboys. Well, if you're going to run your sales department like a bunch of cowboys, then that means you're going to get cowboy-like results. You're going to have really great months, and you're going to have really bad months. But then you're going to come into a situation like COVID, and you're going to get your ass handed to you because you don't have repeatable processes and systems that are ready to handle a thing like COVID. And that's what happens with organizations when they don't systematize their sales department. So think of us as like the revenue operating system as what traction and scaling up has, right? Because both of those models are great. They tell you to dial in sales, but they do not give you a revenue operating system in order to follow. So that's really where we believe we can really help. Just 2 obvious things that you guys can immediately do out of the gate when it comes to your systems is, number 1, you need to have 2 huddles a day. 2 huddles a day. So a morning huddle, like in our organization, we have a morning huddle at 8 a.m. We cover 4 things. Number 1, who's your target prospects for today? Why are they your target prospects? Third question is, how are you going to move the sale forward? Like, how are you going to get in front of them? What's your strategy? What's your tactic? What's your technique to get in front of them? And then the 4th question is, where are you stuck? So are you stuck because you're waiting for marketing to give you some sort of collateral piece? Are you stuck because you need some sort of advice from me as your coach? Are you stuck because you're waiting for operations or purchasing to give you like what the price is? Whatever it is, right? What are you looking for that's preventing you from actually executing and doing your promise for the day? So you start the day with a huddle. And the reason why you do that is because when we started off today, I was talking about the idea of GUMPS, goal-oriented, unleashed, motivating, procedural-based. Unfortunately, if we were to give you these stats, right now across America, the average goal score is about 40 to 45 using the assessments that we have out of 100. So most salespeople, they just don't have high goal clarity. So high goal clarity is, I wake up every day and I go, okay, here's my 5 targeted accounts I'm going after. Here's where they are in the process. Here's where I stopped the sale last time. Here's how I'm going to move the sale forward. And here's how much money I'm going to make when I do it. Like, that's high goal clarity. Well, what happens is if your sales team doesn't have that high goal clarity, then they need outside accountability to give them goal clarity. And that's what a daily huddle does. A daily huddle kind of bridges the gap for their lack of self-sufficient goal clarity by you telling them or holding them accountable of what to do. The end huddle, the huddle at the very end of the day, in our organization, it's at 5 o'clock. So we have a huddle at 8, we have a huddle at 5. And our huddle at 5 is the win huddle. So they're expected to come to the huddle every day with 3 wins. So how do they move a sale forward in 3 different ways? So it could be, obviously, they made a sale, a result, but we can't just have a win on making a sale. because the best salespeople in the country are going to lose 90% of the week, right? The best salespeople in the country are going to strike out 90% of the time in the week, and they're still going to be a top producer for you. No other individual in your company can lose 90% of the time and still be a top producer. That's interesting with sales, right? So with sales, I like to have the wins be all kinds of things. So they can win, obviously, if they sell something, but they can win if they got a customer, a prospect to respond to them. They can win if they set a new appointment. They can win if they, got in front of some whale. They can win if, whatever it is. There's a whole list of ways they can win, and I want them to celebrate those wins. And then my final suggestion I would give you from a systematized perspective is like what you have with traction. You've got all these different meeting models that you guys follow. A meeting model that I follow is what we developed called IEC. So you do it once a month with your sales team, and I stands for incongruent, E stands for elevate, and C stands for celebrate. So think of it as like a triangle. So IEC, okay? So basically what you would do is, Mitchell, in your organization, what would you say is the vision? What's the vision of Santa?
Help bring the season to life, help associate brands with Christmas through the use of holiday entertainers.
Perfect. Good. So what you would do is you would take IEC, right? And in the middle of that triangle, you would put your vision and mission statement of bringing celebration to life, Christmas, et cetera, all that stuff, right? All that great stuff, okay? So then you would take your sales team and you would say, okay, great. So right now, over the last 30 days, where have we been incongruent on accomplishing this vision and this mission to the masses? Like, where have we been incongruent in this? Where have we not shown up? What do we need to do? What do we need to do, right? Elevate. What do we need to do more of? And then celebrate is what do we succeed at? What do we win at? So we do it once a month, and I want you to know we're very vulnerable in our meeting. So when we do the IEC meeting, they're allowed to even knock on me, as the CEO and the coach. Well, Jason, last week, we had we've been a little bit lax on our one-on-one 30-minute huddles, 30-minute coaching conversations. Last week, for example, you canceled it, and over the last month, we've done 3 out of the 4 weeks of one-on-ones, but there's been a pattern of you canceling them. They're allowed to say that to me because I'm going to give it right back to them, right? So that's an area that we begin incongruent on, Or like an area that we're incongruent on sometimes because of Zoom is my team might get laxed on showing up on a Zoom call on time. And so they're not showing up present. They're not showing up ready to work. Or when I come to them and say, hey, tell me about your prospects for today, they have to go through their calendar and they have to go through their CRM and tell me who they're working. No, that's incongruent to what I've asked for to deliver the ultimate sales warrior. So they know the expectation is they come to the huddle prepared. Who are they focused on today? Why are they focused on that person? Where are they stuck? What is their strategy to pursue it? They tell me and I coach them. I don't ask them and they have to think about where they're going next. That would be an area they're incongruent. So the IEC is a very good meeting to have dialed in. Now, in conclusion, the biggest thing the last thing on here that's not listed as a bonus one is compensation. So comp is a very important area that when it comes to hiring a sales warrior, the biggest mistake that we make when it comes to comp is most people pay way too high of a base. It's probably a good thing to hear, isn't it? So I was just talking to, that person just before I got off the phone today, and I said, great, so tell me this kind of salesperson you're looking for, and what's their base? They told me what they're looking for. We do a $205,000 base, and I go, that is nuts. So the first thing I do is guarantee an ROI, because I need you to do like a $45,000 base, and I need you to do a really high commission. Because non-sales warriors want high bases so they can just welfare and just coast. A sales warrior wants the ability to make $500,000, but they're okay making $50,000 base or a $40,000 base. So it's a great even question to ask. So for example, an interview question could be, hey, I got 2 comp packages for you. One that's going to be a $100,000 base and you'll cap out at $150,000. The other is a $50,000 base, but there's literally no cap, and you have the ability, in my opinion, as long as you crush it, you have the ability to probably make $200,000 in the first year, $300,000 after that. So between the 2 comps, what would you be more comfortable with? If any of them ever picks the higher base, you're immediately out. You're immediately out. So that alone will save you a ton of money, just that last tip right there, okay? Because most people are paying way too much on their basis. And they've told themselves a story, well, this person's a 30-year veteran, they got tons of experience, they know what they're doing, so therefore they deserve a higher base. No, that is not acceptable. They do not deserve anything. They deserve to have the ability to make a ton of money, but they are totally fine having a low base. Now, if they're used to making a lot of money, what you can do, of course, is you can always give them some sort of bonus that goes away. So sometimes you're in a situation, right, where they have to have 100 grand, where you give them 100 grand for a certain time period for like 6 months, and then it takes it down to a 50 grand annual comp. So there's kind of structures you can make like that I recommend. Okay, so that's it. So what questions do you guys have or additional coaching we can help you with? Yeah, so we range all over the place. So we're B2B, B2C. So we've got big $4 billion companies that sell lumber and millwork and doors to home builders. We've also got home builders themselves that are B2C. We've got this company today that I talked to was selling more like consulting type services. We've got banks. We've got insurance companies. We've got commercial machines like Komatsu that sell these big commercial machines. So again, remember, our model is very different. The other recruiters out there are more kind of stuck on that experience trap. We only source in one industry, and we focus on industry veterans. We think that model is extremely broken. So instead, we hire for the right mindset. So that's the book that I wrote. So we hire for that goal orientation, the lack of leashes, the motivation, the procedural base, and a bunch of other meta patterns. So Mary and I we both are master practitioners in neuro-linguistic programming. And so it's the science of how we talk to ourselves and others is connected to our brain wiring. And so top producers, they just think differently. And you guys would know that. I mean, so you've heard the concept of visionary and an integrator, right? A visionary and integrator from Traction and so forth. Well, think of the same thing, is that your brain, if you're a visionary in this, raise your hand if you're a visionary. Okay. So if I was to ask you a series of questions, then the way that you spoke would connect me to the prediction that you are a visionary based upon these meta patterns in your brain. Just like if you were to ask certain questions, you would be able to predict this person is an integrator based upon the way they asked or answer these questions and the connection to their brain wiring. The same thing goes with a sales warrior. So, what else? Yeah.
When you're interviewing candidates, how much, do you ask them about their network and their relationships that they already have?
What do you sell? What's your business?
Advertising.
Advertising. It depends on if you want them bringing in. If you're hiring somebody to bring in a book of business or to come from a certain industry, it can be a part of it. And we definitely do when we're hiring more on the business to business side. We will ask somebody about the book of business that they have. However, that will not trump their how goal-oriented, how unleashed, how motivation, and how procedural based they are. Because even if they come in with a big book of business, we've personally fallen into that trap before of hiring somebody that came in with their, I'm going to use the word Rolodex, was incredible. But, and so we went against our own advice one time, and he couldn't close though. He didn't have, he wasn't wired. He failed our neuro-linguistic programming to see, are you wired to close business? Are you wired to get in front of these people? Are you wired to be assertive? Are you wired to come back and to be relentless? He wasn't, but he had a great Rolodex. And so he didn't close anything. Now, that being said, add it on as a perk. So absolutely ask the questions, know that, but don't let it be a hiring decision because it doesn't mean that they're going to close that business just because they know somebody. Because I know probably you know somebody that's a great networker that knows everybody in the world, but they haven't closed any of those people in business. And we also know people that don't know anybody, that are new in the industry, come in, and all of a sudden they're closing business everywhere. So it's a perk, but it shouldn't be a deciding factor on whether to hire someone. Anything you want to add to that?
So just remember, the mindset needs to be great sales warriors. They're the best at taking social interactions and making it business transactions. The best sales warriors are the best at taking social interactions and making them business transactions. the story we tell ourselves, like for example, I knew this friend of mine that works at Merrill Lynch, and he's been there for 20 years. And every single time I meet the guy, he tells me the story of, this is going to be my year, Jason. And I'm just, what do you mean? Well, I mean, I just had this great network, and I keep going to networking events, and I keep going to all these functions and so forth, and I'm eventually going to get these people to choose me. And look, I mean, it's hard to coach your friends, right? Because I've asked them several times, well, have you ever asked them, like, what holds you back from choosing Merrill Lynch and moving your money over to us? No, that's not how we do things here. Okay, well, you make $100,000 a year for the last 20 years, you graduated from TCU, and you paid $100,000 to do that. It's a very shitty investment your parents paid, right? I told them that.
Maybe edit the last one.
You know what I mean? Like, what a disgrace, right? So the mistake that we make, though, is we tell ourselves a story. And I was talking to, a banker about this too. And I said, so great. So what do you call your salespeople? And they said, we call them relationship managers. And I said, well, what do you want them to do? Well, we want them to bring money into the bank. It's a local bank. And I said, well, great. Well, give me an example of a salesperson you're struggling with. And he said, oh, her name's so and so. And I said, well, what did she do? Well, she brought in one account, a grocery store, in 12 months. And I said, well, it sounds like she's doing exactly what you asked her to do. And I said, what do you mean? Well, you call her a relationship manager, and you tell her that her job is to go network and build relationships, and she did a great job of managing that, and she brought in one for you. You know what I mean? Like, our expectations are exactly what we're getting. And so what I told him is I said, if you want to bring more money into your bank, it's very simple. And that is, you got to change the expectation of what you want your salespeople to do, and you need to call them something different. Because they're not relationship managers. If they're held accountable and they're also going to be fired if they don't bring in business, I think there's a lack of integrity issue here. Because you're about to write this person up and fire them, but they're doing exactly what their title says and exactly what their job description is asking them to do. But now you're going to fire them for not producing. So clear is kind, what Brene Brown says, right? Clear is kind. Give clear expectations of what you expect. Give them proper training, proper coaching, hold them accountable, measure. And then, my belief system is you hire as if they're never going to be any better than the day that you hired them. And then for 90 days, you coach them like they can be the greatest sales professional on the planet. And then when 90 days is up, you do a clear measurement on what is their productivity like, what is their activity like, how many deals they brought in, how many proposals they brought in, et cetera. And you make a hard decision on that moment. And that is, are they doing better than previous incumbents in the first 90 days? Am I top grading this? And if the answer is no, you have to cut them. Just like in Vegas. Now, that's why my belief system is in line with Noah from the Noah's Ark. I believe in hiring salespeople in pairs because it adds that extra level of accountability and it helps remove my personal risk that when I hire one, I've invested all that time into them for the first 90 days, and they don't perform, and I'm like, crap, now I got to start back over. It's much better, obviously, if you can hire in pairs, and then you can either win big and have both, which is not a problem, or you can get rid of one and you're not going to kill yourself for the next 90 days not having someone. So again, that's my personal rule. Another question? Is this helpful?
Is there any up?
I think you should share your ice cream story, how you hire.
Interviews?
It's all you. She's the queen of group interviews. She does these all the time.
This is my favorite.
She does this like drinking.
It's in a coffee mug, so nobody knows. So, okay, here's what's really fun. Can we pretend like you guys are in a group interview with me? Okay, so what I would do is I would first have all of you, I would talk to you, I would tell you, hey, you know what? I always start this way because when people are going in and they're interviewing together, there's a level of tension. I don't want a level of tension. What I want is I want you to feel really comfortable being yourself, so I'm gonna joke around a little bit, and then I'm gonna ask you some silly things, like tell me your favorite, tell me your favorite ice cream. So Chris, I'm gonna start with you, but before you start, don't make it vanilla, chocolate, or strawberry because that's boring, and I wanna get to know you through ice cream. Coffee Bar Crunch. Never heard of it. Sounds delicious. Let's pass it. What's your favorite ice cream? And it can't be Coffee Bar Crunch now, too. That's off.
Cookies and cream.
Ugh, classic. Beautiful. Next one.
I don't like ice cream.
So he would be cut immediately. We can't have people like that in our organizations.
Cookie dough.
Cookie dough.
He would be cut strictly based on the fact that he's oppositional right now in an interview. And no offense against you, right? But I'm just trying to help. We
Yeah.
gotta hire. We're looking for procedural-based people that will follow orders and they will go and follow the exact direction we have. People are the very best at the interview.
So he should be running his own company, which he's doing, but not working for Jason. Because you see, they butt heads.
He will do that shit to me all the time, right? I say, I need you to do this, this, and this. I need you to do this, and this. And he's go, I don't agree with that. Okay, I don't have time for you. You know what I mean? It's too, that doesn't work.
So you need that especially because you can't have somebody doing that to you because you're already stubborn. So next step. So I get them to tell me their ice cream. Yeah. Great. So now that I know that, now what I do is I go, okay, guys, now I'm doing it virtually. We're all seeing each other on screens. I'm going to say, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to give you 4 minutes. And what I want you to do is just as a team, I want you to decide out of the 3 ice creams that you have, which one is going to be your team ice cream. You guys are a team, and I need you to figure that out. And I said, and while I do this, I will be here, but I'm going to black out my screen, and I'm going to mute myself, and you guys just decide, and I'll be back in 3 minutes. And then I just mute myself, and I just watch them like this. And do you know what happens every time? Somebody steps up to be the leader. I'm not going to make you guys do all this right now, but somebody steps up to be the leader. Somebody takes control. Somebody persuades the other to pick Coffee Bar Crunch. And I go, okay, this is a real life scenario because when I put salespeople out, it's not just, it's them against all the competitors. It's them having people, have objections with them. But they're doing this in a nice, easy, talking about ice cream, non-threatening way. So now I know who my leader is. Now I'm going to double check it. I come back in, I go, hey guys, was that fun? Good. Okay, so what I want you to do, I'm going to do this as we're live. What I want you to do is I want you to everybody put your finger up in the air, and on the count of 3, I want you to point to your spokesperson. And then we go, 1, 2, 3. Everybody points to the spokesperson. Guess what? All of them will point to the same person. So they just told me who the leader in the group is. They told me who they would willingly follow. And I did all of that, making it comfortable for them, making it easy for me, making it a place where I can have a cocktail while they tell me who's the best. And so that's one of the steps of when we're doing interviews with people, whether it's, in fact, I've done 50 people interviews in this room over and over again, doing this, put them in the tables, have them decide. And then I give them the opportunities as well to, now tell me, how did you pick that? Tell me why that ice cream. So now I get to see them, just how do they think? How are they gonna put together a pitch that doesn't matter? And so it helps me to start whittling it down. Now, here's something really cool. Every once in a while, very rare, I'll say, I need you to put a finger up in the air and I want you to point to the spokesperson, the leader of your group. 1, 2, 3, somebody will point to themselves. Very, very rare. But if they do that, they're also showing me not only am I a leader, I am here willing to point to myself and to stand up as that leader. I'm going to nominate and I'm going to self-promote myself. And one of the biggest things on whether a salesperson is going to be successful is, will they self-promote? Or do they go, oh no, don't make me talk. We need to self-promote. That's what you need, is somebody that's going to go out and promote your product and stand up and say, I am representing something that is so great and I am worthy of being heard, and so I'm going to stand up and I'm going to tell you about it. It's a different type of person. And so that's one piece of our 6 steps in our group interviews that helps us to start finding who are the warriors that we could have join your teams.
Yeah, the thing I would say too, we are so big on our own biases and avoiding the experience trap that our recruiters are trained to, when they source these people into the interview, to the group interview, we have someone else that's sourcing them in, but the people that are doing the group interviews have not looked at their resume. Because we want the people who are doing the interviews to have complete non-bias. We don't want them to have any.
I don't want to root for you.
Root for
Chris. I know Chris. I know his business is really cool. He's doing some big stuff. He's growing. I don't want to root for Chris.
Chris has the best Rolodex. He has the best experience. I really hope Chris. Well, I'm going to put a bias on that. And so we want to go in completely unfiltered, and we're just looking at, do you handle conflict? Are you the leader? Are you persuasive? Are you a promoter? We're looking for that kind of, can you follow directions? You show up on time? We're looking for that kind of stuff, right? And so again, we take more of a Moneyball type, you've seen the movie Moneyball? We take more of a Moneyball of recruiting and hiring and onboarding to guarantee the performance. So I know we're out of time. Anything else? You good? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jason and Mary. We have a gift for you, but we'll mail it to you. It didn't show up on time today. So.